consent calendar. Senate Bills 77 and 81 do pass as amended. Senate Bill 79 was tabled, and House Concurrent Resolution 1013 and 1014 were deferred to the 41st legislative day. Respectfully, Larry Roden, Chair. Also, the Committee on Education respectfully reports that Senate Concurrent Resolution 17 do pass as amended. Respectfully, Timothy R. Johns, Chair. Also, the Committee on Commerce and Energy respectfully reports that Senate Bill 173 do pass and Senate Bill 169 do pass as amended. Respectfully, Tim Rounds, Chair. Also, Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that the Office of Engrossing and Enrolling has carefully compared House Bills 1007, 1054, 1104, 1110, 1116, 1169, 1258, 1269, 1271, 1273, 1278, 1280, and 1292, and finds the same correctly enrolled. Respectfully submitted, G. Mark Mickelson, Chair.
Messages.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to return herewith House Bills number 1054, 1104, 1110, 1258, 1169, 1269, 1271, 1273, 1278, 1280, and 1292, which have passed the Senate without change. Respectfully, Kay Johnson, Secretary. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate has concurred in House amendments to Senate Bills number 43, 73, 86, 140, 164, 165, 185, and Senate Concurrent Resolution 16. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that House Bills number 1216 and 1277 were tabled. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that House Bills number 1109 and 1176 were deferred to the 41st legislative day. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to return herewith House Bills 1058 and 1155, which have been amended by the Senate, and your concurrence in the amendment is respectfully requested. The President Pro Tem has appointed Senators Nelson, Cronin, and Nessebar as a committee of 3 on the part of the Senate to meet with the like committee on the part of the House to adjust the differences between the two houses on House Bill 1268. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate has failed to concur in House amendments to Senate Bill 125 and has appointed Senators Peters, Curd, and Sutton as a committee of 3 on the part of the Senate to meet with the like committee on the part of the House to adjust the differences between the two houses. The Speaker appointed Representatives Hunhoff, Lust, and Bartling as a committee of 3 on the part of the House to meet with the like committee on the part of the Senate to adjust the differences between the two houses on Senate Bill 125. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate has failed to concur in House amendments to Senate Bill 46 and has appointed Senators Bolin, Heinert, and Maher as a committee of 3 on the part of the Senate to meet with a like committee on the part of the House to adjust the differences between the two houses. Respectfully, Kay Johnson, Secretary. The Speaker has appointed Representatives Johns, Jensen, and Smith as a committee of 3 on the part of the House to meet with a like committee on the part of the Senate to adjust the differences between the two houses on Senate Bill 46.
Motions and resolutions.
Representative Bartles moved that the House do concur in the Senate amendments to House Bill 1248.
Discussion on that motion.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Bartles.
I would ask you all to concur with this. It was the deletion of one word, which will make it a lot easier for the Secretary of State to administer. Thank you for your support.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the body is Representative Bartles' motion that the House concur with Senate amendments on House Bill 1248. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Representative Holmes, Carr, May, and Schaefer. Carr votes aye. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there are yeas 64, excused 6.
Representative Bartle's motion that the House concur on Senate amendments to House Bill 1248, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared adopted.
Representative Quam moved that when we adjourn today, we adjourn to convene at 11:30, Tuesday, March 6th, the 34th legislative day.
All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Consideration of committee reports.
Representative Quam moved that the reports of the standing committees on Ag and Natural Resources on Senate Bill 166, as found on page 664 of the House Journal, also Ag and Natural Resources on Senate Bill 29, as found on page 664 of the House Journal, and also Local Government on Senate Bill 187, as found on page 665 of the House Journal, be adopted.
All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Second reading of Senate bills.
Senate Bill 156, an act to revise certain provisions regarding brand inspections.
Senate Bill 156, having had second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Bruner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, bring you Senate Bill 156, very simple little bill having to do with brand inspection, the brand inspection area in our state. It adds a section that says, if requested, the board may inspect livestock in this state located outside the livestock ownership inspection area, which, as you know, is West River, East River being a non-inspection area, so doesn't require them, just says they may go inspect those, because obviously North Dakota is has statewide brand inspections, so sometimes this is requested. Last section of the bill just establishes that the inspection fee for these livestock will be $1 a head, same as it is in the West River area. Thank you.
Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, question before the body is final passage of Senate Bill 156. This is a 2/3 vote due to the continuous appropriation of a fee in the bill. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The members shall proceed to vote.
Representative Glanzer, Johnson, Lattarell. Representative Lattarell. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 63, nays 1, and excused 6.
Senate Bill 156, having received the majority vote of the member, the 2/3 vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
Senate Bill 76, an act to revise certain provisions regarding voter registration.
Senate Bill 76, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Allers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. Senate Bill 76 would require the Department of Tribal Relations to disseminate educational materials on elections and voting, apply for HAVA grants, and establish satellite voting locations on the reservation. The department will work in conjunction with the Secretary of State, tribal, and county governments. The Secretary of State testified on behalf of this bill, and there were no opponents. I think something that most of us are well aware of is that South Dakota has the dubious distinction of being home to the top 3 poorest counties in the nation, as well as 4 of the top 10, all of which are homes to our Native American reservations. Because of the poverty and the socioeconomic status of our reservations, it makes it difficult for them to do what we take for granted every day, whether register to vote, access to voter information, and just the simple right to vote. This bill is aimed at improving that situation on the reservations. And with the application of HAVA grants, if you're not familiar, HAVA grants provide funding to help states with new election standards, improve election administration, and the funding can be used for provisional voting, voter information, administrative complaint procedures, update and upgrade of voter equipment, statewide voter registration, and voter ID procedures. Ultimately, this bill aims to improve the access and to voting on the reservations, as well as access to information on elections and registering to vote. A secondary benefit to this bill is the performance standards it would create for the Department of Tribal Relations. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, we examine departments and we base our funding on what they do as a department, what kind of things, what kind of services they provide for the people of South Dakota. With the Department of Tribal Relations, when we ask these questions, we simply get the answer year in and year out. We have 8 of the 9 tribes in a sales tax agreement. But going forward, requiring this department to perform these activities and get these grants and set up these locations, we do increase the ability to measure that $500,000 that we spend in that department by knowing the number or the amount of HAVA grants that they would get in an election year, the education materials and how they distribute it on the reservations and how they're working with the tribes, and the number of satellite locations that they would establish on the reservations. So I ask for your support of this bill.
Further remarks? Representative Lattarell.
Have an amendment,
Okay, I don't.
a voice amendment.
A voice amendment? Go ahead and state your voice amendment.
In line 6, strike the word additional.
Line 6, Senate Bill 76, strike the word additional. Do you wish to move that at this time?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a second? All right, go ahead and discuss the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I was just reading this bill, and I had a little bit of a concern with putting into statute a requirement to add additional satellite voter locations in our state statute. So what we would see is in the state statute, it would continuously require the department to establish additional satellite voting center locations. So I think that the department should assist with the satellite voting center locations, education grants, election grants, things like that. But having the word additional in the statute, I think, puts a perpetual requirement on the department to create more. So just in the spirit of the bill, I think it would be better if our statute didn't have that word in it.
Further remarks on the motion to amend? Representative Allers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I have no problem with that amendment. I would view it as a friendly amendment.
Seeing no further remarks, the question for the body is Representative Lattarell's motion to amend Senate Bill 76 by striking the word additional on line 6. All those members in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Amendment carries. Further remarks, Senate Bill 76 is amended. Seeing none, the question for, Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question for the sponsor.
Go ahead.
So we're mandating that they shall do this. I'm just curious, are they not currently doing anything? Are they not cooperating with the Secretary of State's office?
Representative Allers, do you wish to answer the question?
I do, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the question, Representative. Actually, the current Secretary of State does do and engage in some of these activities, even without the Department of Tribal Relations. But as the Secretary also noted in committee, that previous administrations have not partaken in this, and this is why she supports this effort.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the body is final passage of Senate Bill 76 is amended. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Representative Jensen? Granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce somebody from Representative Anderson in my district. Kathy Johnson, sitting here in the back. She's from Lincoln County. Her daughter was in our 4-H club for many, many, many years. And you may have seen Emily walking around as a Senate intern this year. So help me welcome Kathy Johnson. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 55, nays 9, and excused 6.
Senate Bill 76 is amended. Having received the majority vote of the members elect is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
Senate Bill 128, an act to revise certain provisions regarding ballot question committees.
Senate Bill 128, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. Senate Bill 128 will allow ballot committees to remain organized between elections to support and or oppose multiple ballot measures. So it'd put them on the same schedule as political action committees, political parties, and candidate committees. This bill would just say you wouldn't have to dissolve this committee every year. They'd be able to keep on doing it for what they believe is in their group's best interest. So with that, I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the body is final passage of Senate Bill 128. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Representative Schaefer. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 64, excused 6.
Senate Bill 128, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
Senate Bill 65, an act to revise certain provisions regarding drug deliveries that result in death and to provide a penalty therefor.
Senate Bill 65, having had second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Barthel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill would enhance the penalties for persons who distribute and manufacture controlled substances when a person dies as a direct result of using that substance. Just for a little background, in 2016, there were 51 accidental overdose deaths. 18 of those were the result of methamphetamine use. 8 were from heroin, and the remaining were attributed to opioid medications or a combination of drugs. This bill doesn't target those who are legally prescribed medications. And also, just to back up a little bit, in 2015, there were 41 of those accidental deaths, 42 the year before, and 32 before that. So as you can tell, the numbers are certainly rising. But under this proposed legislation, any person who intentionally or lawfully distributes, manufactures, a controlled substance and another person dies as a direct result of that will have their principal felony level elevated 2 levels. So by way of example, if a person is found guilty of an unlawful distribution of methamphetamine under current law, it would be a Class 4 felony with a maximum punishment of up to 10 years. And if the recipient of the methamphetamine dies, it would be increased 2 levels to a Class 2 felony, punishable by up to 25 years. There's no quality control in dealing illegal drugs. There is no FDA approval or checking on dosages and that sort of thing. So people that use these drugs certainly know there's a high risk in it, and the people that deal in it certainly are very much aware of that. And so when they're dealing in this, they're certainly taking a risk, and if someone dies from that, they certainly should be held accountable. So I would encourage your support of this bill. I'll stand by for questions. Thanks.
Okay, there is a prison statement for those of you who are interested on this. Okay, further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the body is final passage of Senate Bill 65. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Representative Zickman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the fact that you're allowing me to read this commemoration for our veterans and first responders. I've had this almost all the session, and I've wondered when I'm going to be able to read it, and today is perfect because we're voting on the cemetery, Veteran Cemetery Bill, Senate Bill 91. And if you would allow me, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask all of our veterans on the floor and in the audience to please stand. Would all of our veterans please stand?
Go ahead and stand up.
Stay standing. Thank you. A legislative commemoration expressing gratitude and admiration for all the men and women who are in active military service, who are veterans, or who are or have been first responders in our state. Whereas throughout our country's history, generations of men and women have answered the call to leave their families and their jobs and put their futures and even their lives on the line, so valiantly defend our nation and its inalienable rights. And whereas the first responders, including professional and volunteer fire, police, emergency medical technician, and paramedic workers tirelessly and fearlessly serve others and at times of greatest need, even when it requires putting themselves in harm's way. If I missed any first responders, please also stand. Whereas the active military members, veterans, and first responders in our state deserve to be recognized for their commitment to safety, defense, and honor, and are owed a debt of gratitude for the countless sacrifices they have made. And whereas for too many, the sacrifices made have ended in permanent injury or death, but yet their spirit remains in the continued protection of and service to others. Now, therefore, be it commemorated by the 93rd Legislature of the State of South Dakota that the Legislature hereby acknowledges the tremendous contributions of the active military members, veterans, and first responders of this state, and express to them profound gratitude and appreciation for the services and protections they provide and for the sacrifices they have made along the way. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Conzett, Dennert, DeSanto, Howard, and Johns. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 64 and excused 6.
Senate Bill 65, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
Senate Bill 214, an act to revise certain provisions regarding legislators' salaries.
Senate Bill 214, having had its second reading, is up for consideration. Final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Heineman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. Senate Bill 214 was the Senate's approach to legislative salary increases. They had it come out in the form of a commission, a 10-member commission, came over to this representative's House side in State Affairs, and with their permission, with the sponsor's permission, we amended it to mirror our House Bill 1311, which means we went ahead and amended it to the, instead of a commission, it would be a process of equaling 1/5 of the South Dakota median household income reported by the United States Census Bureau current population survey as ascertained and adjusted each year by the State Board of Finance to take effect on the first day of January of each year. We amended that, it came out of State Affairs, and it's a mirror bill to 1311. We would hope that you would support that. I did address some constitutionality questions in the committee, and if you have any of those, I'd be glad to address them. I stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Representative Carr.
Thank you. We saw this bill not too long ago. We passed it. It is identical to the bill, except we've now named that that index we're going to use for the median household income. Just a reminder, in 20 years, in the last 20 years, we're the only group out of all the state employees, elected officials, judges, that have not received any type of raise, cost of living adjustment, inflationary adjustment. So the Appropriations Committee, the legislature is trusted to review and set a salary policy for state employees, and the state constitution gives us that authority to fix the salary of its members and its constitutional officers. We've exercised this right 8 times. Just a reminder, I know it's been a few days, but we've crammed a lot in these days. So appreciate your support on this. I can tell you that as I've been out walking and getting petition signatures, I like to go door to door and just get some feedback while we're in session here to hear what the folks in District 11 are following, what things are important to them since session's not quite over yet. And every once in a while this will come up. I've talked to, on this topic, Republicans, Democrats, teachers. I've talked to business owners, stay-at-home moms, retired individuals, and not one has had a concern with this or opposed it. They've told me, you guys need to do this, and you need to just do it yourselves. So appreciate your green support on this again today. Thank you.
Further remarks? Any further remarks? Representative Latterell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's pretty close, almost didn't get to talk on this one. I'm going to vote no on this bill. One of the reasons I did have a concern about the constitutionality question, and there are different views on what the original intent of the Constitution was when it said that the legislature by a 2/3 vote can fix the salary of the legislators. And my view is that whether or not it's constitutional, I feel like it's probably not in my interpretation, but whether or not it is, it seems a little strange to me that we are going to put into statute a number for our salary that automatically increases. We'll take a 2/3 vote to make that happen. And then if we ever want to stop that automatic increase, we'll need a 2/3 vote to stop it. So that seems a little bit strange to me. That's one of the main reasons I'm going to vote no on this bill. If we want to stop a situation like that, I think we should probably think about the runaway inflation that's happening in our country, the runaway spending, and work on stopping that instead of just automatically increasing numbers every year. So that's why I'm voting no. I'd encourage you to do the same.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the body is final passage of Senate Bill 214. This is a two-thirds vote due to the constitutional requirement. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Representative May? May votes aye. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 49, nays 15, and excused 6.
Senate Bill 214, having received the two-thirds vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
Senate Bill 63, an act to revise certain prohibitions regarding methamphetamines and to create a mandatory penalty for a violation thereof.
Senate Bill 63, having had second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House. Senate Bill 63 deals with the meth crisis. And you know, I think the word crisis sometimes gets overused. And what does it really mean in South Dakota? Well, what it means in South Dakota is this, to give you some statistics on this. In 2009, there were 311 meth arrests. In 2017, that figure ballooned to 3,390 meth arrests. In 2017 alone, our law enforcement individuals seized 142 pounds of meth, which equates to 64,468 grams. And there are 454 grams in each pound. A gram is selling for around $80 a gram. So in other words, our law enforcement, just on what they've seized well over $5 million. The amount of meth that they seized in 2017, there was enough hits to give half of the state of South Dakota residents to get high. For every 5 grams, there are 30 to 40 people who are getting high. This bill has been brought by our Attorney General, and I think it really fits into the philosophy of Senate Bill 70, and that it's targeting those individuals, the distributors, that are causing things for people to be violent as they try to get funds to get their drugs. But it also makes a limit at 5 grams for those who are using it, and so we're making that kind of a distinction. There are 4 major parts to this bill. The first part of the bill is directed specifically to the drug dealers, and what it does is it enhances their penalty dependent upon the number of times that they've been convicted. The second part of it that I think is really important is that there's a mandatory minimum that's sentencing that they are to receive. There's a safety valve involved, just like there is in the federal government with the federal sentencing guidelines, that allows individuals for the judge to give them a different sentence, provided that there's no proof that there was violence involved, there was no prior violent felony, that there was that they were not inducing others to do violence, they're not the leader of the group, and that no death was involved. But more importantly, I think from the law enforcement standpoint, if they're going to be able to avoid the mandatory sentence, they have to truthfully participate and help out the law enforcement to get them more information as to who these dealers really are. The third part of it I think that's really important is it also increases the penalty when those drugs are distributed to minors. And finally, there's a $10,000 civil penalty that can be involved as well. So this is an attempt by our Attorney General to really address this meth crisis. I think it speaks for itself, and I would ask you for your support.
Further remarks? Representative Johns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I rise in support of this bill. I'm behind it 100%, but I want you to think that this does not totally solve our drug problem, as it does not take, and it will not take, all drugs off the streets. Because of drug addiction, there is a large demand for methamphetamine and other mind-altering substances. Methamphetamine is extremely addictive. For many people, they become addicted the first time they utilize it, and that was part of the testimony before us in the House Judiciary. This bill provides for only one tool to meet the problem. As long as there is a demand for these substances, someone's going to meet the demand. That's one of those principles of market that we learned about early on. If there is a demand, somebody's going to meet that want. There's other things that we have to do and we have to recognize. One is education. We have to educate our young people. We have to and that's where we have to start. And we have to have more programs in the area of prevention. And finally, we need to be dealing with the addictions of some of these people. Those will reduce the demand. We have to, sooner or later, adequately fund these things. This bill is just one step in the right direction, but it's not going to end the problem. Thank you. Please vote yes for the bill.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the body is final passage of Senate Bill 63. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Yes, Representative Chase. Granted.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I have a special guest with me today. I'm going to ask my son Ryan to stand up. My youngest son Ryan, who is a student at Dakota Wesleyan, political science and communications major, came out to interview for a summer internship, and due to the weather is going to be a guest of ours for a few days. And so I took him to a couple committee meetings this morning and thanked the friends from across the aisle for letting him attend the caucus. And Representative John says, let's give him a full legislative experience, so he's sitting next to Representative John. So if you'd all help me welcome my son Ryan.
Well, your dad brags about you quite a bit, Ryan. Mary, you're so good at creating cohesiveness. Yes, Representative Greenfield. Is that spoken like an only child or the oldest child? I'm not sure. Representative Greenfield.
Thank you. I've been asked to, for the speaker to give me a little latitude here. I want to present a commemoration today, and I think it's very much in keeping with what the former speakers have said regarding to this last bill. Drug addiction is very, very serious. It is a respecter of no persons and no ages. And we need to educate not only young people, but also our officers in South Dakota and parents as well. And so this all fell into play with what happened to one of our deputy sheriffs in Spink County. And this is House Commemoration 1027 speaks as follows. A legislative commemoration honoring and thanking Spink County Deputy Sheriff Jason Kraft for his brave and honorable service and his heroic life-saving actions. Whereas Jason Kraft has honorably and dutifully served the people of South Dakota, serving as Spink County Sheriff's Office deputy and in Edmond County Sheriff's Department in the past, and has served in law enforcement for over 20 years. And whereas after responding to a frantic 911 call on the night of January 13th, 2018, and finding a 13-year-old girl unconscious, turning blue, not breathing, he quickly recognized the signs of opiate overdose. And whereas Jason Kraft, having received proper opiate training just a month prior to that, quickly and effectively administered Narcan to the unconscious girl who awoke as she was being loaded into the ambulance. And whereas Jason Kraft humbly denied credit for his heroic act and instead credited the ambulance crew, 911 dispatchers, and other officers, and whereas Jason Kraft has been a committed husband to his wife Kelly and a loving father to their 4 children, during his selfless service to his community and the members thereof, now therefore be it commemorated by the 93rd Legislature of the state of South Dakota that the legislature recognizes and honors Spink County Sheriff Deputy Jason Kraft for his honorable and heroic service of several years in office and for his heroic life-saving actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Greenfield.
Representative Bartles, Lust, and Sue Peterson. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 63, nays 1, and excused 6.
Senate Bill 63, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
Senate Bill 91, an act to authorize the Department of Veterans Affairs to provide for the design, construction, and equipping of a state veterans cemetery in Minnehaha County, to create a veterans cemetery fund, to make an appropriation therefore, and to declare an emergency.
Senate Bill 91, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Representative Zickman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk.
Okay, is that Amendment 91BD?
It is, Mr. Speaker.
Do you wish to move it at this time?
I do.
And we have a second. It's been distributed?
It has.
All right, sir, you may discuss the amendment in the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. LRC came to me Thursday night and said that they had a drafting error and had to be changed. So on page 3, line 12 of the Joint Appropriations Committee and Gross Bill, delete section 5 and insert section 6. So that's very quick. May I speak to the bill now, Mr. Speaker?
Yeah, you may. You want us to just pass that amendment real quick?
Yes, I do, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further remarks on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before the body is Representative Zickman's motion to amend Senate Bill 91 with Amendment 91BD. All those members in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. Amendment carries. We're now on Senate Bill 91 as amended. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, it's been an honor to carry this bill this year. And after the veterans have been working with this for over 30 years, we're finally at this stage. The veterans have been wanting a veteran cemetery in eastern South Dakota for over 30 years. We are one of only 5 states without one. Closest are Sturgis or Fort Snelling, Minnesota. In 2016, a task force was formed to study the possibility of creating a veteran cemetery in eastern South Dakota. City of Sioux Falls has committed to donating 40 acres or more of suitable land from 280 acres they own. It is about 1/2 mile north and 1/2 mile east of the intersection of I-229 and I-90. The exact location will be determined by a survey of the site. One part of this bill authorizes the Department of Veterans Affairs to accept the donation. We need to file a preliminary application to National Cemetery Commission by July 1st of 2018. The bill also instructs the Department of Veterans Affairs to file this application, thus the reason for the emergency clause. Normally, they determine the priorities and announce them in September. We have been told if we apply, we should be in the top 5 projects. However, Mr. Speaker, I hear good possible news on last Thursday that the chair of the State Veterans Committee said that he has talked to two of the top people in Washington, D.C., and we should be number one. Once we are on the priority list, we need to put up 10% of the $6 million requested in the grant for surveying and design work. Once everything is acceptable, the final grant can be awarded. Then $600,000 will be returned to the general fund and designated for the cemetery operating fund. At this point, the Department of Veterans Affairs is authorized to build a cemetery. The construction phase will include preparation of 13 acres, including 10 acres, which will include 2,068 burial plots. This includes digging the graves and inserting the vaults. 8 inches of pea gravel and 4 inches of topsoil are then placed over the vault, so that opening the grave involves only probably more than you want to know, removing the gravel and sod. The grant also includes all equipment such as backhoes, mowers, etc. This phase will take from 12 to 18 months to complete. Veterans, their spouse, and minor children can be buried in the cemetery. The federal government will pay $762 for each veteran's burial. The family or estate will be charged $762 for the burial of a spouse of minor children. In the case of a married couple, the first to pass will be buried on the bottom and the spouse on top. The grave marker will have the veteran on one side and the spouse on the other. Now we come to the funding. The $600,000 will come from $450,000 on-time money from the 2018 budget. The remaining $150,000 will come from an appropriation in the 2019 budget. When this money is refunded by the federal government, it will be placed in the operating fund. In addition, the Veterans Council will create a community fund to assist with ongoing operating costs. The goal will be to raise at least $3 million by July 31st, 2023. The intent will be to raise $150,000 a year in interest to assist with operation of the cemetery. The fund is not limited to $3 million, and the intention is to allow it to continue to accept contributions so that it could eventually cover all of the operating costs. I'd like to thank everyone involved with getting us to the point that this bill is before you today, especially the Veterans Council, Joint Appropriations. They've done a great job, the Sioux Falls City Council, BFM, and the members of the House who have given us their support. They've all been great. Since most of the work will be done by the next administration, we also want to let you know and thank AG Marty Jackley, Representative Kristi Noem, and Senator Billy Sutton for their support by providing encouragement and letters of support. This has passed the Senate. It went through the Joint Appropriations 17-0, no opposition, and after 30 years of working to try to get this through, we ask you, ladies and gentlemen of this body, to vote green. Thank you. Support your veterans again. Thank you.
Further remarks?
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Peterson, Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Senate Bill 91, which, as you have heard, will begin the process by which a veterans cemetery in eastern South Dakota will be constructed to serve as a final resting place for those who served in our country's military branches during time of war and times of peace. Anyone who has visited the Arlington National Cemetery or the Fort Meade National Cemetery knows what special reverence these hallowed grounds impart to every family member, friends, and visitors. Creation of this veterans cemetery will touch the lives of nearly every South Dakota family, as we have one of the highest percentages of families who have had a member serve in the military. In our own family, for example, we have had family members who have served with honor in World War I, World War II, Vietnam, the Balkans, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Some of our family members were seriously wounded in combat, defending our nation and our freedoms. The cost of this project is far less than the price these brave men and women have paid for our nation. The city of Sioux Falls is donating the land for the cemetery. The state of South Dakota will contribute upfront cost, and the veterans themselves are committed to raising funds to support ongoing maintenance. Please honor our veterans and their service by helping us create this national monument to them. I urge your support of Senate Bill 91.
Further remarks? Representative Jameson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just as a personal note, two personal pieces, I guess. I'll try to get through this as strong as I can. First, though, I wanted to state that as a guy who is potentially doing everything he can to be a part of the future administration in Sioux Falls, I will pledge my support to make sure this project is completed. On a second note, more personal, my dad died in August. He's a Korean War veteran, and he's buried in Sturgis. And that was always the plan for him, because that's where it was going to go. But when it came time for his interment, my mom couldn't travel across the state. Just couldn't make that trip. So it kind of made a gap in all things, you know. And certainly time has passed for Dad, and he's where he's at, but there's a great opportunity for future veterans to be buried near their family. Okay, I can do this. This isn't that hard. Dad would love this. If Dad was here, he'd love to be in Sioux Falls. He spent 18 years in local government, countless years in the Air National Guard as a pilot. He'd love to be in Sioux Falls, but he's happy in Sturgis. That's where my mom will go. But I hadn't really thought about the chance of bringing Dad back. We haven't covered that yet, but this would be an opportunity. Vote yes, please.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the body is final passage on Senate Bill 91 as amended. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The members shall proceed to vote. All right. Well, if no one else has anything, I'm going to start reading off bill signings. Speaker has signed Senate Joint Resolution Number 1, proposing and submitting to the electors at the next general election an amendment to the Constitution of the State of South Dakota. The Speaker signed Senate Bill 7, an act to revise certain provisions concerning campaign finance limits. The Speaker signed Senate Bill 19, an act to revise certain provisions regarding lease purchase agreements for a local education agency. The Speaker signed Senate Bill 20, an act to enact the state and province emergency management assistance memorandum of understanding.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there was yeas 64, excused 6.
Senate Bill 64, or Senate Bill 91 as amended, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved. The Speaker signed Senate Bill 23, an act to reduce the driver license renewal requirements regarding the submittal of documentation of Social Security numbers and to update certain references to federal regulations.
Senate Bill 100, an act to establish certain provisions related to grant monitoring and review and to revise certain record retention policies.
Senate Bill 100, having had its second reading, is up for consideration. Final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Shanefish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. Senate Bill 100 addresses concerns and issues that came up in regard to grant monitoring and review. Section 1 states that the Department of Legislative Audit or the private accounting firm who audits the school district will send a copy of the audit report to the person designated by the school board to receive the report, and that person will furnish the report to each board member. The accounting firm I work for has been doing this for many years as we send enough hard copies to the entity for every board member. Section 1 will put the requirement in statute that all board members should receive the report and emphasize the responsibility of the board members and the entity for the findings of that report. Section 2 requires any city, county, or school district who receives an independent audit to make the report available on their website. Section 3 requires any subrecipient or program evaluation reports where the state agency serves as a pass-through entity to be posted on OpenSD. And any recipient or subrecipient conflict of interest must be disclosed to the state agency and posted on OpenSD along with the grant agreement. Section 4 strengthens controls over grants by stating that a person who determines the recipient of the award cannot receive the award, and the person who receives the award cannot evaluate the performance of the award. Section 5 states any person holding statewide office or the head of any agency in the executive branch shall sign a conflict of interest disclosure form disclosing any conflicts, and GOAC will review those conflicts annually. Section 6 increases the length of time contracts must be displayed on the OpenSD website from 1 to 2 years following expiration of the contract. Section 7 requires grant agreements with non-state agencies to be displayed for the same length of time as contracts. Currently, there is not a specific time period required for those agreements to be displayed. Section 8 requires that vouchers and invoices that are submitted to the state auditor must have a record retention period of at least 7 years, which is in line with certain accounting guidelines on record retention. SB 100 will strengthen accountability and transparency, and I would ask for your green vote. Thank you.
Further remarks, Senate Bill 100. Representative Wismer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a member of Government Operations and Audit Committee, and a co-sponsor of the bill, I just thought I'd stand up and say a me too and remind the body that actually this bill is pretty much a direct result of a lot of the work that your Government Operations and Audit Committee did this summer in reviewing all of the things that went wrong during the Gear Up debacle. And if several of these provisions had been in place and had been enforced, I firmly believe that I certainly can't say, you can never say that you can completely stop fraud and abuse, but I do believe that some of these provisions could have helped discover it sooner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the body is final passage of Senate Bill 100. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Representative Peterson.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Well, I'd ask that the body rise as we say hello to our colleagues that are not with us today. I came across a quote today that says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And as I was reading that today, I thought of our two colleagues that aren't here. And I think they personify what that means, whether it be their work outside of Pierre or here when they have been with us. And we just want to let you know we miss you. We're thinking about you. We hope to see you soon, and you are always, always on our mind. So we hope you're having a good day. Thank you.
Representatives DeSanto, Carr, Lust, and Weesey. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 64, excused 6.
Senate Bill 100, having received the majority vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
Senate Bill 137, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the minimum hunting age.
Senate Bill 137, having had second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Yes, Representative Otten.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and fellow members. Today I bring you Senate Bill 137,
An act to revise certain provisions regarding the minimum hunting age. And what this would do is remove the minimum hunting age requirement if accompanied by a hunting mentor. I will read part of what's in statute so everybody has a good idea of what a hunting mentor is if you do not today. A hunting mentor is the child's parent or guardian or any other competent adult who has the written consent of the child's parent or guardian. The hunting mentor shall be a resident of this state, shall be unarmed except as provided in this section, shall have successfully completed a hunter safety or hunter education course that meets the requirements of chapters 41-7, and shall possess a valid hunting license for the game being hunted. A child who hunts pursuant to this section shall be under the immediate physical control, direct supervision, and responsibility of a hunting mentor at the time a child discharges a firearm or operates a bow or arrow in the act of hunting. And the reason that I am asking to strike the requirement of at least 10, which is in line 6 of that, and making it a 0, because I believe that as a parent, I am a better judge of whether my child has the abilities to go out there and hunt. 35 other states do not have a minimum requirement, with Wisconsin being the latest add to that list. I believe there's an amendment that's coming forward, so I am going to stop at this time and let that part proceed.
Very good. Representative Roden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, 137JA. It has been distributed, and I'd like to move it at this time.
Go ahead and discuss the amendment in the bill if you wish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the chamber. Well, I won't take a lot of time because this is pretty simple and straightforward. I was involved in this chamber probably, I think it was 10 years ago. For decades, our law set the minimum hunting age at 12, and that's when you could take the hunt safety course. There was a bill to move that age to 10. It failed the first year. The next year, the GF&P come up with the language for the mentorship program. And I will say my youngest son at that time was just turning 10, and I think I was unduly influenced and lobbied by him, maybe inappropriately, I don't know. But he did come to Ag Committee and was up in the corner and testified as a proponent, and it was kind of a proud moment for a father. But at that time, we moved the age to 10, even though 10-year-olds could not take the hunt safety class because it wasn't designed for 10-year-olds. So I had to kind of swallow hard to pass that. Now, this bill completely removes any age requirement. And for the vast majority of situations, I think it would get along fine. But I've had too many experiences in my own life. You know, we do a lot of shooting, have a lot of relatives and friends that come out. And I shudder to think at some of the circumstances that certain parents could put their 6, 7-year-old, a first grader, by putting a shotgun in their hand. Most of us in this chamber know what a deadly, lethal weapon a shotgun is in a group hunt. And I've even scared myself at times just because of the nature of pheasant hunting. And granted, this bill requires, you know, the current language requires a smaller group like 6, but still, I just thought it was a fair compromise. Instead of just completely removing the age requirement, to reduce it to 8-year-olds. And that's what the amendment does, and I'd urge your support.
Further remarks, Representative Gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question for the sponsor of the amendment.
Go ahead and state your question.
You chose 8. Is there any scientific data or any proof as to why 8? I mean, why 8 for an age?
Well, the reason is because it's pretty obvious. At that age, you know, your 8th grader is in 2nd, 3rd grade. And it was just a number. We went from 12 to 10. You know, as a compromise, I just went to 8. It was suggested that it would be a friendly amendment if I went to 7. I didn't, you know, I had to swallow hard at 8. But I think if you look at the development of the child, and at 8 years old, you know, I can swallow hard and support that. Anything younger than that, I think it's got to the point where that child is just not physically able to safely handle a large caliber weapon.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Gosh, the floor is yours.
Was there any data or studies showed that 10 was an appropriate age, the current age?
Representative Roden, do you wish to answer that question?
No, I wouldn't go off any data, no.
Representative Gosh, the floor is yours.
Nothing further.
Okay, any further remarks on the motion to amend? Representative Dennert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Real quickly, let's just let the parents decide here. Every child is different. There's probably a 7-year-old out there who's more mature and ready to hunt more so than a lot of kids that are probably 9. So let's let the parents decide. I'd urge you to decline the amendment and then pass the bill. Thank you.
Further remarks on the motion to amend? Representative Otten.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I would prefer the bill stays the way it does. You know, I am a firm believer that I, as a parent, is more in tune with my child as to his or her ability to go out there and hunt with me and harvest an animal. You know, I sit there and take the time and talk through with my child of you know, what it means to hunt, about us going out there shooting something, fact that we're going to harvest that animal, and then we're going to come back home, and you know, ultimately we'll eat that. And you know, to me, 10 is arbitrary. You know, 8, you know, is still a number I don't care for. You know, my son's 12. We're going to be 12 here in about 20 days, and he'll be taking the hunt. Safe course, so this doesn't impact me, but I would just like to think myself as a parent, you know, I have ability to gauge that child, and maybe that child at 7 is ready, and maybe my 13-year-old isn't. I'm not going to push my 13-year-old to go out there and hunt just because the age says they can. You know, as a parent, I have a duty to, you know, be there with my child and see where they're at mentally. So I would ask that you resist the amendment and go on to pass the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House.
Very good. See no further. Okay, rebuttal on the motion to amend. Representative Roden.
Well, thank you. And again, very briefly, current law, and I think there's a common misperception about current law, because I brought it up in committee when members thought that if they were teaching their child to hunt and shooting small game, that they were breaking the law. They are not. And that's in law. I said when I gave an example of me sitting in my dad's lap when I was probably 5 years old and holding a .22 and I'd shoot a jackrabbit. You know, that's allowed under current law. We also received during Ag Committee a letter from a man that had a 10-year-old son who he was mentoring in a pheasant hunt, and his son shot his father's best friend and paralyzed him for life. And it kind of brought the whole thing home to me that, yeah, I would say most parents are very responsible, but some aren't. Why would we reduce the age to 1, 2, 3-year-olds? I think 8-year-old is a reasonable compromise. I urge your support. Thank you.
Seeing no further remarks, the question for the body is Representative Roden's motion that Senate Bill 137 be amended with Amendment 137JA. All those members in favor of said motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no? No! That motion fails. 137 is amended. Further remarks? As not amended. Yes, Representative Lesmeister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. I rise in opposition to this bill today. The previous speaker with the amendment just spoke to 41-6-2. License not required to hunt certain game animals and fish on owned or leased property during open season. A resident of this state may hunt or take in a lawful manner excuse me, fox, squirrel, gray squirrel, red squirrel, cottontail rabbits, and any game birds, or fish during an open season provided by provisions of law. So I guess, you know, they're talking about teaching your children about harvesting animals, teaching them about the proper way to hunt, and so on and so forth. It's already here, folks. It's in statute already. The only difference is they want to be able to shoot a deer. Well, if you're really teaching them about just going out and harvesting an animal and fishing and what to do with this animal properly, you can go out and shoot doves already. You can shoot some different upland game birds, grouse, quail, partridge, whatever you want. You can take rabbits, cottontail, and guess what? You're teaching them every aspect of what he's asking you to do with this new law. But it's already in place. So I ask you to oppose this bill. There's got to be some regulation, I'll call it, and I hate that word, but regulation, I'll call it, in place so these children are taking a hunter safety course. My gosh, we can't even shoot a BB gun at a local BB gun shoot without a hunter safety course. But yet we want to go ahead and allow them to take a 270 or a 300 Win Mag or a 12-gauge shotgun and go shoot something. If they want to use a 22 or a small caliber rifle, shoot some rabbit, take a 410, 28 gauge, even a 12 gauge. If you think your child at 8 or 10 years old can handle the kick of a 12 gauge shotgun and not ruin him as being a hunter for a while, that's your decision. But I think we have a statute in place that's good. I think it allows for this to happen. I think this is, I just don't think we need this bill at this time. So I hope you oppose this bill and vote red. Thank you.
Further remarks, Representative Steinauer.
Question for the previous speaker.
Go ahead.
I was just, in looking at that, it looks like that statute that allows small game hunting at any age is only on your own land. Is that correct?
That is the way the statute states.
Okay, we have a lot of residents that don't have enough land for hunting. Just want to point that out. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, if I may.
Yep, Representative Lesmeister.
Just to follow up on that.
Hang on a second. Steinauer had a question. Do you have anything further? All right. Representative Lesmeister, have you already talked on this bill?
Yes, I have, sir.
All right, why don't we give anyone else a chance, and then you can talk again if you want to. No one else wants to talk, we'll go to Lesmeister, then Otten. All right.
Thank you, sir. Just for the previous speaker's question, follow up with it is, yes, and when Mr. Life testified in committee, he also stated that there has never, that he is aware of, never been a ticket written for somebody to take their child out and show them how to shoot a gun to shoot a rabbit or a dove or a quail or whatever. He said, you know, there's a lot of latitude gave there. If you have your 8 or 10-year-old out there shooting and teach them the right way, that's what they want. They're not going to write you a ticket and throw you in jail for it. So just to, yes, it does state on your own property, but there's never been a ticket that he's aware of written on this.
Okay. Seeing no further remarks other than Representative Otten, closing remarks, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we are talking about big game here. If you go to page 2, line 9, it says a mentored child may not take big game under the provisions of this section except antlerless deer, turkey, and doe fawn antelope. So your mentor can get a tag for that. I believe they're $5. You get one, and it is for an antlerless deer, a doe fawn antelope, or for turkey. So, you know, the comment about just giving your kid a 270 and letting them go out there and bang away with that thing, well, once again, I'm going to fall back onto the responsible parent aspect of this thing. You know, I'm not going to go out there and give them a 300 Win Mag to shoot, regardless of whether they're 7 years old, 10 years old, or 12 years old. You know, your weapon needs to be appropriate for your child. Last year, my son, who had the mentor tag, I have a 243 Rossi. It's a single shot. Went out and bought a bipod for that thing, set it up, have him shoot that at targets before we go out. Make sure the child's familiar with the gun he's going to shoot. When we went deer hunting out in Millette County last year, opportunity presented himself for a muley doe. Got out, set up the bipod, sat down, one shot, shot the deer. Well, I would like to think anybody who's going to take their child out, regardless of the age, is going to be responsible enough to go through all of that with their child. That's why I do not believe an age will make a difference with this. Let that 9-year-old, let that 8-year-old, Let that 7-year-old go out there and do that in a controlled environment with their parent if they can. Thank you.
Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of Senate Bill 137. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. The Speaker signs Senate Bill 44, an act to establish a license for certain gaming equipment manufacturers and distributors. The Speaker signs Senate Bill 59, an act to authorize the Department of Tourism to permit certain commercial advertising and information centers. The Speaker signs Senate Bill 69, an act to allow certain registration and permit documents to be stored and presented electronically. The Speaker signs Senate Bill 70, an act to define the term serve for the purposes of regulating the sale and use of alcoholic beverages. Speaker signs Senate Bill 83, an act to authorize certain patriotic societies access to public schools. Speaker signs Senate Bill 93, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the intentional exposure of others to certain diseases. Speaker signs Senate Bill 94, an act to establish certain provisions regarding the Opportunity Scholarship Program.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 45, nays 19, and excused 6.
Oh, I meant to vote no on that. Change my vote. Senate Bill 137, having received the majority vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed.
Mr. Speaker,
Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved. The Speaker signs Senate Bill 96, an act to designate Chislic as the official NOSH for certain counties in southeastern South Dakota. Speaker signs Senate Bill 99, an act to authorize the release of certain 9/11 emergency surcharge information to public safety answering points.
Senate Bill 98, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the 911 emergency surcharge, the public safety 9/11 emergency fund, and revenue distribution, and to repeal the 9/11 emergency surcharge sunset clause.
Senate Bill 98, having had a second reading, is up for consideration. Final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Jameson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. Senate Bill 98 makes revisions to the 911 emergency surcharge and its sunset clause. Last year, we made changes to the 911 emergency surcharge revenue disbursements to the public safety answering points to encourage compliance regarding those who were not following the standard procedures. If they didn't follow, they were going to risk losing revenue. The good news is all of those PSAPs are now in compliance. The bad news is we had an error referencing some laws, and that's why if you look at the bill, you'll see the last 3 pages are removed. And so we need to fix that error, otherwise there'll be a funding gap to those PSAPs, and we surely wouldn't want that. The second piece of the Senate Bill 98 is to remove the sunset clause, which is set to be removed in 2019 and would revert the $1.25 surcharge fee down to $1. If that funding then essentially is removed and sent back to $1, the funding gap of about $4 million would be reverted to the counties and cities to restore that funding and to make the funding complete. So with that, I urge your support. Any questions? I'll stand by.
Further remarks? Senate Bill 98. Seeing no further remarks, question before the body is final passage of Senate Bill 98. This will be the 2/3 vote due to the removal of a sunset clause on a fee. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Speaker signed Senate Bill 105, an act to authorize a healthcare practitioner to administer a toxicology test to an infant under certain circumstances. The Speaker signed Senate Bill 117, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the Partners in Education Tax Program. The Speaker signed Senate Bill 151, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the sale of trailers at special events and to declare an emergency. The Speaker signed Senate Bill 153, an act to require disclosure of certain fees being imposed by overnight lodging accommodations. The Speaker signed Senate Bill 154, an act to revise certain provisions concerning the transfer of motor vehicle titles to satisfy unpaid motor vehicle repair bills. The Speaker signs House Bill 1081, an act to repeal the sunset clause regarding the recreational use of non-meandered water.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 60, nays 4, excused 6.
Senate Bill 98, having received the two-thirds vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved. The Speaker signs House Bill 1106, an act to authorize certain hunting preference points to be granted to persons aged 10 years or younger. The Speaker signs House Bill 1121, an act to revise the fees for certain on-sale and off-sale retail liquor licenses. The Speaker signs House Bill 1146, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the consumption of alcoholic beverages by passengers aboard vehicles operated by licensed carriers. Speaker signs House Bill 1161, an act to revise certain references to the International Building Code. Speaker signs House Bill 1165, an act to repeal certain provisions providing for a pilot charter school for Native American students if the state had received a federal grant. Speaker signs House Bill 1221, an act to expand the Partners in Education Tax Credit Program to include tribally controlled schools. Speaker signs House Bill 1270, an act to adjust the period of time requiring the use of lighted front and rear lamps on motor vehicles. Speaker signs House Bill 1007, an act to require any initiated measure to embrace only one subject. Speaker signs House Bill 1054, an act to revise certain provisions regarding crimes that are considered violent for parole calculation purposes. The Speaker signs House Bill 1104, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the arrest of certain victims of domestic abuse. The Speaker signs House Bill 1110, an act to increase the penalty for certain subsequent convictions of hiring for sexual activity or promoting prostitution. Speaker signs House Bill 1116, an act to revise certain provisions regarding special interest motor vehicle license plates. Speaker signs House Bill 1169, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the commissioner form of municipal government. Speaker signs House Bill 1258, an act to revise certain provisions regarding aviation. Speaker signs House Bill 1269, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the time frame for consent and adoption proceedings. Speaker signs House Bill 1271, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the carrying of certain guns on certain premises. Speaker signs House Bill 1273, an act to revise certain provisions regarding convention facility on-sale licenses to sell alcoholic beverages. Speaker signs House Bill 1278, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the extradition of fugitives by Indian tribes. The Speaker signs House Bill 1280, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the calculation of suspended prison sentences. And the Speaker signs House Bill 1292, an act to revise the process by which courts consider appeals of decisions regarding conditional use requests. All right, if there's no objection, we are going to revert to order of business number 7, messages.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that a change has been made in the Senate Conference Committee on House Bill 1016. The committee should now be Senators Boland, Netherton, and Killer. Respectfully, Kay Johnson, Secretary. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that a change has been made in the Senate Conference Committee on House Bill 1268. The committee should now be Senators Nelson, Cronin, and Killer. Respectfully, Kay Johnson, Secretary. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate has failed to concur in House amendments to Senate Bill 62 and has appointed Senators Russell, Peters, and Partridge as a committee of 3 on the part of the Senate to meet with a like committee on the part of the House to adjust the differences between the two houses. Respectfully, Kay Johnson, Secretary. The Speaker appointed Representatives Turbeville, Rosem, and Wismer as a committee of 3 on the part of the House to meet with the like committee on the part of the Senate to adjust the differences between the two houses on Senate Bill 62.
Announcements? Anyone have any committee meetings tomorrow? Representative Otten?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Ag and Natural Resources tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We are going to do just a quick little talk through if there's any summer study stuff, and then it'll be our ag breakfast, 9 o'clock.
Representative Ketwig?
House Local Government will meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock. We're going to talk about summer study possibilities.
Representative Allers?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Appropriations tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. We'll continue with budget setting and some possible bill hearings.
Anyone else have an announcement?
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Beal?
I move we adjourn. Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no?
No.
We are going to revote. All in favor of the Beal motion to adjourn, I can't hear you. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
We are adjourned.